All right, well, welcome to episode number 23 of the Oklahoma Weather Show. Some days we have guests on here, other days we just talk a lot of things about weather, and that's what we're going to do today, is just talk about all things about weather, kind of give you a little bit of background information about what I do, what Jonathan Condor we do when the camera's not on. So we're just going to let this be a free-form show, just kind of talk about all things that really just pop up in our head. Looking into the future over the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, Jonathan, I know you're in charge of next week's show. What are we talking about next week?
The topic for next week is weather related, but it's completely different. So, you know, having worked in Oklahoma for a while, and I know if you're a meteorologist or a weather enthusiast, if you look on radar in July, we can see not only storms, obviously, but we can see birds, bugs, and the bats. And up in Alabaster Cavern State Park, there's a cave, and in July, the bats come out. And if the temperatures are right with the radar, we can see them come out. It looks like it's low-level reflectivity, but we can see them come out. I'm like, man, what is that all about? Is that every day of the year? Is it just in July? So we're going to have a biologist with the conservation department. She's going to tell us everything about what they call the Selman bat watch. And so, you know, we'll show some images on radar, what it looks like, and that's about the only extent of weather that's the only tie-in. The rest of it's going to be, tell us about the bats. Where are they from? Do they live there year-round? What do they eat? You know, what if you go up there to check it out? Because I guess it's a huge thing in July for people to go out every night and watch the bats just fly out of the cave. It's like a swarm.
A lot of people hate bats, but I mean, don't they eat all the mosquitoes? Is that right?
We're gonna find out.
I think Discover Oklahoma is going to love that, Jonathan, because a little bit of a tourism push there, try to get people up north.
It's a really nice cavern because I ended up visiting there this past year, and it's, you know, if you have never been, you really need to go check it out. I have never experienced what Jonathan was talking about, where they fly out of the cave, but even the cavern itself, going down in there, is really awesome to see some really cool rock formations, and then lots of bats too. So check it out.
The only caverns I've ever been to was, oh gosh, I'm drawing a mind blank right now.
Which one is the stalactite? Is it the one that goes to the ground, or is it the one that comes up?
Tight. The tight holds tight to the ceiling. The stalagmite might grow up.
Hey, there you go.
Did your fifth grade science teacher teach you that?
Yes.
And then, so that'll be cool. That'll be a good show. And then the show after that. So at the end of the month, we're going to be talking with a radar scope and talking about apps that you should have on your phone. That'll be a pretty cool one. So I'm anxious again to talk to the developers of Radar Scope and have them on the show. Danielle, before we kind of hit the start broadcast button, we were talking about social media and all things. You're pretty big on social media. What do you like? What do you like about social media? What's good? What's bad? What do you want to see in the future?
Well, what I think is bad for social media in terms of up-to-date warnings and
spit it out and yell. No?
Is Brad?
I think we lost
I'm hearing
Danielle
like. No, I'm hearing Brad I'm hearing Brad do some weird
I'm messing with you. That's what we were hearing
I'm
from
like,
you.
what is he doing?
It's good. It's nice little vocoder. She's got something going on in there.
Okay, you guys can hear me now?
we can hear you now.
Okay.
You had a little bit of a reverb going on there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm here at the station with everybody else, so the service is probably spotty.
Everyone's trying to grab onto the internet. I know. It's quiet around the lunchtime.
Well, I was just saying that I think that Facebook's a terrible platform for warning information. So if you're trying to get severe tornado warnings or things like that, Facebook, I think, is just terrible. Now, Facebook does have its ups, in my opinion. I think that it's great for blog postings about weather or just checking out day-to-day articles about weather and things like that. But in terms of warnings, I think Twitter is where it's at. Now, people would argue Twitter. Well, Twitter might not be that great for warnings if you aren't on it constantly. Well, then you can argue the flip side to that, which is that's why you have to use timestamps. So, you know, with Twitter, just for all the viewers out there, in my opinion, when it comes to social media, just really pay attention to those timestamps. And when you see somebody tweet something about a warning, whether it be me or Brad or whoever your meteorologist is, your go-to, just make sure that when you retweet it and you don't see a timestamp on it, put your own timestamp on it, or you know, something like that, just so people have an idea of when it was tweeted out. And obviously, like I said, I think Twitter is a great social media platform for that kind of thing. And yeah, so. Any
of y'all ever respond to a tweet and then you go back and think, oh, I shouldn't have responded to that tweet? Anyone ever done that? I've done it.
Yeah.
We get hate mail. I mean, trust me. When we cut into your favorite programming, we see all of your complaints. I actually had a guy, and I shared this with you, Danielle, and I shared it with Jonathan. This guy wrote me a letter a couple days ago, and he writes me all the time, and he doesn't really care for me all that much. But he got mad. He got mad.
We have a segment, Damon, where we read everyone's like angry tweets to us.
Yeah, I know. We probably should do. We probably should do something like that. But this guy wrote me a letter, and he was mad because when I give the forecast for Oklahoma City, I'm not specifying which city in Oklahoma that I'm giving the forecast for. And I wanted to say, no, I'm giving the forecast for Oklahoma City. It's not an Oklahoma City. It is Oklahoma City. I mean, we get all sorts of hate emails all the time.
The good ones always start with "wake up." Anytime someone starts their tweet with "wake up," that's always a good one.
But there's been a couple times where I've responded to a tweet, but then I started thinking about it. You know what? If you engage with an angry viewer, it's better to engage with an angry viewer than to not engage with any viewers at all.
Okay. Kill them with kindness, dude.
You know, they come back anytime you say something positive to them when they tweet you negative or write you negative. People always come back and they say, "Oh, I'm just kidding with you, just joking around." Because I think a lot of times when people write us or write anybody for that matter, they don't really think that, hey, it's actually me reading this or actually us writing this. That, you know, that for some reason we're not real people on the other end.
They think we're a bot sometimes. Yeah, they think we're a bot.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're right. Yeah, I mean, Brad the other day I think posted an article and somebody responded, this isn't them anyway. This is somebody else just posting random stuff about weather. And I looked at Brad like, maybe you know, viewers don't realize that, yeah, we're on the other end of a lot of the articles, especially when we tag our name at the end. So it's us. We do the work.
One thing I've noticed about the internet is that the internet has made people have the capability of being a lot more harsh than they used to, because a lot of times people, they wouldn't say these things to your face if they saw you on the street, but now that they can sit behind a computer desk and sling out some pretty mean, you know, some mean things.
Facebook seems to be the worst. I mean, I guess I've heard it said, this isn't my research, but through a social media expert, that Twitter, there seems to be more people on Twitter that have an education and less on Facebook. And sometimes Facebook seems to be more like, you know, more like hate book. I mean, not that people that are uneducated are hateful, but there just seems to be a lot more negativity on Facebook.
They did research not too long ago where they did an average who stays on each social media platform the longest. And the numbers may be a little off. I want to say the average person is on Twitter for about 30 seconds at a time. You know, they just kind of scroll through. The average person is on Facebook for about 45 to 50 seconds, and then the average person is on Google Plus for about 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Which is very interesting, because I thought it would be opposite. And I know people like to make fun of Google Plus, you know, and they say it's never going to take off. It's never going to take off. But one thing that Google is promoting now, and they're going to emphasize it in the coming years, is that whatever you post on Google Plus will then start popping up in search engines. So let's say that I put up a post on my Google Plus page. If someone were to Google me, it would start grabbing those first.
Googling Damon Lane right now.
Be careful what you post, then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's a good point, because I read in business.
Damon, I have a great picture of you and your wife as the very first The very first thing I see
We're working
on Google.
She's a beautiful looking person. But I did read in Business Weekly that Bing is going to start putting people's social media posts in their search engine. So be careful what you post on Facebook, because if you have a job interview coming up, people can start finding your posts.
So Damon, in that picture that pops up, what were you guys doing, man? I mean, was that? It's you and Melissa. You're wearing some sort of jogging suit.
Oh, we were in Jackson Hole, and we had just come across. Did any of y'all ever do? Oh gosh, the name of the guy. He does the X.
Tony Horton.
Tony Horton. There you go, Jonathan. So we sat next to Tony Horton on a flight from Salt Lake City to Jackson.
Okay.
You know how he always does the Tony Horton?
Oh, sure.
So that was us doing the
Tony Horton X.
Yeah, the Tony Horton.
You guys intense, man.
Hey, a workout's intense. The workout's intense. You ever do one of those workouts?
Yeah, I did the series 1.5 times. After you do it enough, it kind of gets a little boring, I think. I mean, you go through it so many times. I don't know. I know he came out with a second series. But anyway, I want to talk to Jonathan because he does lightning photography. So Jonathan, how, like tonight, I mean, are you going to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and get out your camera? And if so, I mean, my finger's not fast enough to take a picture of lightning. What's the best way to photograph lightning?
Hey, that's going to be one of our guests in July 9th. A friend of mine who I think is one of the best lightning photographers I know, he'll be in studio, and he's going to teach us how to do lightning photography. I learned doing lightning, and his pictures are amazing. We'll do a slideshow, and we'll share them, and it's sick what he can do. But anyways, it's really hard if you try to shoot the shutter with your finger. You'll never be fast enough. They make sensors that go on your camera that will activate your shutter instantly, but they're expensive, $150, $200. And so what you usually do, here's a little tease to our July 9th podcast. You need a digital single lens reflex camera, you need a tripod, and you need a remote, a wireless remote. And the remotes aren't that expensive. So you just set up your camera, you aim it towards the lightning, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. I go completely manual. So I control how big my shutter is, so that's the f-stop. That means how much light you're allowing in, and then you can control your time. So usually I start maybe with like an f6 for about 15 seconds at night. And then it all depends how much ambient light you have, how far away the lightning strikes are. You can play with the gain. You can turn the gain up and everything. So the other night I went out, and it was so frustrating. There was lightning all up and around me, and I couldn't get any, and I missed all the cloud-to-ground strikes. That's what I'm shooting for, is the CGs and then the anvil crawlers. And it was all intra-cloud. So frustrating. You're out there for like an hour, and you can't get anything. It's like going muskie fishing. You got to take about 200 pictures just to get one keeper.
Wait, say that again. What kind of fishing?
Muskie?
What is that?
Yeah, they got teeth, I think, don't they?
Yeah, they have teeth. It's like a northern pike, or if you're from Oklahoma, it's a chain pickerel.
I did not know that. I need to get that on the screen.
Yeah.
Now, for those I don't know, Jonathan, where are you from? You're from up north. Is that?
I was born in the original Stillwater, Minnesota.
Oh man.
It's on the border of Minnesota, Wisconsin, just to the east of St. Paul, Minneapolis. And when they were the pioneers were developing Minnesota and expanding it, Stillwater had the choice: do you want to be the state capital, or do you want to be the state prison? And they end up being the state prison, which is great because Stillwater is nestled in this beautiful river valley. They have paddle boats, like dinner buffets, and they have a dinner train, and it's all antique facade. Like the downtown, it's, in the main street, it's all like brick facade, old buildings, very pretty. But anyways, that's born and raised.
I like Minnesota. I actually, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Minnesota. I was obsessed with the Minnesota Twins and the Vikings. big Kirby Puckett fan growing up, and I always thought I'd end up in Minnesota, and I ended up down here in Oklahoma, which I love. I love it down here. Danielle, what's happening with you? You got some things coming up in the coming weeks. You're headed out of town.
Yeah, I'm getting to go to Europe, so I'm pretty excited about it. Going back for my 3rd time, and just love it over there. So if you don't see me on the air here, within the next week and a half, that's why.
Now I got jealous one day because you popped up in front of the Spain Weather Service, didn't you?
Yeah. Just knowing how to speak the language. It took about 6 years. I wouldn't say I'm like completely fluent in it, but I know how to carry on a conversation. So I was able to talk to the front desk security at the Spain.
Spit it out.
And yeah, it was really. Come on. There's such a delay here, so. So, it was really nice. And she's on top of the roof, and so.
Is she speaking Portuguese?
Hey, yeah, were you practicing? Hey, so Danielle, isn't there a difference between, and I don't know much about Spanish, I didn't do so good, between European Spanish and
Latin American Spanish.
Yeah, American Spanish. Is
yeah, there's definitely one. Actually, we're having some internet connection.
Yeah, I think we are, because I don't think you guys can hear me. Yes. There's
Yes. We're having trouble, Danielle. Your picture's nice. You look happy. All right.
Can you testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
You're in and out.
Danielle,
you're just in and out, Danielle. Your signal's breaking up a little bit.
Damon, there's some questions on Livewire for today.
Oh, hey, speaking of Livewire, we do need to address, a lot of times people ask, who was the girl on the bottom of the screen here with all of our pictures? That is Stephanie Bacchus. She is actually our...
She sits really close to the camera.
Yeah, that is our web manager, and so we actually run this through the Livewire on KOCO.com. Jonathan, what are the questions?
They're all about tonight. Ruth Ann is asking, how bad should the winds be Midwest City tonight? Do I need the candles and flashlights on standby?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know what?
Candles never, right?
Let me pull up the wharf that we have here, and let's see what we've got.
I don't know if the timing has changed. This morning I was looking at comparing her and RPM. Those are models we use, and we often use the high resolution models, as everybody knows. Say, usually 20 kilometers or less, probably good. But it had we had Midwest City, Oklahoma City, midnight to 2, but that was not using 12Z. So as Damon is literally pulling it up now, what time? What are the times, Damon?
So here we are about 1 a.m.
All right. So it hasn't changed much.
Yeah, here we go. So this is the wharf that we have here, the NAM 4K kilometer. So it's a high resolution. This is the Storm Prediction Center model, and if I look at let's see what we got, the cape. Ooh, look at that cape out there in the Panhandle. I think probably what's going to happen here tonight is, let's just go look at SPC. I sent out New Outlook. I think it's going to be a lot like what we've seen over the last couple of nights. I mean,
Damon, it was interesting that the other night, I guess it was Friday night, Saturday morning, right, Danielle, that wind gust at Will Rogers to 87 miles per hour?
Yeah.
None of the other sites, none of the Mesonet sites, none of the sites really anywhere in Oklahoma had any wind gust more than 40 or 50, and then all of a sudden, boom, here comes one of the most trusted sensors in the state at Will Rogers on the ASOS, gust to 87. Man, a lot of people were discrediting that.
Yeah.
Or
Can
just
you guys
thinking,
hear me
there's no
now?
way.
Hello?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay, good. Sorry, I signed off and then back on so I could try to get volume back. Yeah, I was just going to chime in on that. Yeah, I mean, when I was working, the velocities didn't even suggest anything close to that. And like you said, it was like 60, 65, 70 maybe at best. out of some of these couplets that were coming out, because there were a few couplets on Velocity that night, and I think a lot of us as meteorologists were tweeting out, wow, it was a very small scale event, or
Well, essentially the same thing can happen tonight. I mean, we're talking, not everybody gets the same amount of wind, and you see wind gusts 40, 50 here, and then all of a sudden, literally across the street, could be a gust of 70 or 80. I mean, it's amazing how, it makes you wonder, too, how many times that little sort of micro wind gust goes ever unknown. You hear somebody saying, well, heck, I lost my barn, and you look at the closest sensor 2 or 3 miles away, and it's like, well, the wind is only 40. Your barn must have been made of straw. But it could have been stronger than that.
And we were thinking,
Danielle, you both worked that pretty well. This Jonathan, you had those storms. Danielle, you were talking about the microbursts.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the other reason why that 87-mile-per-hour wind gust at OKC was so strange to us is because we thought, you know, after the whole weekend, like, you had PV or Paul's Valley getting a microburst, and their recorded winds about 60, 70 mile per hour, and then meanwhile you see so many pictures and reports of damage, and then you know you get this 87-mile-per-hour wind gust at Oklahoma City, and nobody calls in, and you would think that somebody would have called, one of our viewers would have called in and said, hey, you know, this really woke me up, my tree's down in my yard, but no. And you know, I was talking to one of the forecasters at the weather office, and they were saying, you know, it just happened in a remote area and right over the sensor, and you know, if it had happened another mile or two down the street, then yeah, you probably would have had a lot of calls.
Yeah, I mean, I guess tonight, you know, we can definitely see some more winds. You know, the thing about these storms that we get is that sometimes they just get outflow dominated, and all of a sudden, you know, it might look really, really meaty out to the west, and then it comes into OKC, and you know, it doesn't really do much, hardly a light show, and then sometimes you can get these ones that just maintain their strength. I mean, definitely, I'd say there's definitely a wind threat. At least there's not a tornado threat. I mean, that we know for sure 100%.
Damon, I would agree on the wind threat, because keep in mind this past weekend when we had some of the same MCS activity, the mesoscale convective systems, those are those storm complexes, come through, temperatures were much, much cooler. I mean, we had a weekend where we were only in the 70s to around 80. You know, we're pushing 90 today. Later on tonight, it's going to be a lot warmer, so those are going to be able to maintain themselves a lot longer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you're on the opposite end now of these MCSs, because you were in Colorado Springs for a while. You got to watch them develop.
Well, you know, you never really talked much about the convective systems there, because when they were on the Front Range of Colorado along the you know, the interstate corridor there that runs all the way from Cheyenne, Wyoming, through Denver down to Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Trinidad, really just parallels about 100 miles inland, or inland, I say, west of Kansas. They all start right there, kind of where the mountains begin. The energy rolls out of the mountains, and the storms fire up right there at the base of the Rockies. And they are individual storm cells, and they're just getting going. And as they move about 30 or 40 miles east of the Rockies, there's a little bit more wind shear, and there is a little bit higher levels of moisture, and the dew point's a lot higher. I mean, you're talking these high base storms in Colorado Springs with an air temperature of 88 over 30 dew point firing up, and I mean, the base of these storms are 20,000 feet. And then they get out on the plains, and they encounter the 60, 65 dew points and the wind shear, and they can start rotating. I mean, you saw this past week all of the little tornadoes dropping down. I mean, there were a number of tornadoes, but of course, once they get farther out onto the plains into Kansas, they all get together, have a little party, and you know what's crazy about those storm lines is you kind of never know which way they're going to go. The MCSs, you try to forecast them, you're like, all right, this looks like it's going to take a southeasterly track, and then it heads due south.
Yeah.
Forecasting the way an MCS is going to travel, I mean, that is a tough thing to do.
It is, and it's not just us saying that, you know, on TV, but you know, even a lot of times you look at the Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center. That's why sometimes these watch boxes can be as big as they are, because they have to account for all of these little microclimates that set up as these complexes move through, and I've seen some storm complexes go almost from north due south, which is something that you don't expect to find out here. So they can definitely come in and pack a punch. And Brad, you definitely bring up some good points about the temperatures that we have outside today.
And that's a big caveat too, Damon, on that predictor model that we've been running on our website. Now I know the weather team, sometimes we're not crazy about putting the same model online. People are wanting to look at it, so management is saying, hey, we got to get that sucker on there. People are watching it, so let's put it on there more. Well, folks watching, high-resolution models, 4-kilometer models, 10, 20-kilometer models, they don't always handle the location of those MCSs very well. And I think that's the big struggle, as we often know, on models, is their resolution, their handling of convective activity, and this is what we're talking about. It's just not always great.
Yeah, and that's one thing. And I think Danielle and I talked about this a long time ago, where sometimes too much resolution is not a good thing. I know a lot of times, we get excited with these 1-kilometer, 4-kilometer resolution models that can just give us some amazing data, but sometimes the more resolution you have, it can throw things off and can make something unreliable. So while we want to always sometimes flock to the RAP or the Kerr, sometimes a 20-kilometer resolution model ends up handling better. As a matter of fact, the blizzard of 2009, so Christmas Eve blizzard. Brad, I believe you were in Colorado Springs in 2009.
What month?
December.
That was December blizzard.
Yeah. Yes, I was in Colorado Springs.
Abilene. Jonathan, you were here in Oklahoma City during that. But the GFS model ended up being the best performing model handling that. And which was surprising, because I remember talking back in the Weather Center, where we saw the potential blizzard coming in around Christmas time, and the GFS model, 15 days out, and at that point I think the resolution 15 days out is like 40 kilometers. It might even be more than that. But we just kind of joke about, because that's what we do in the Weather Center. We kind of laugh sometimes, because the models will tell you anything you want to hear. They'll paint out a severe weather setup 15 days out, or 10 days out, I guess, and sometimes they can put in a blizzard 10 days out. But remember saying, oh, look at this, this is interesting. And
yeah, large scale models with low resolution. I mean, your Euro, your GFS, 100 kilometer resolution. In forecasting a blizzard in Kansas, Wyoming, all areas just north of Oklahoma are perfect. I mean, you want one of those synoptic models. But of course, our issue in Oklahoma, it seems like central Oklahoma is always the rain-snow line. And so I know my first year in Oklahoma, a year and a half ago, there were 4 storms that we played that rain-snow line, seemed like every single time, and the blizzard conditions was just outside the metro. And we kept getting burned, and I kept thinking, boy, forecasting blizzard in Colorado is so much easier than it is in Oklahoma. This is probably, and everywhere we go, and I know we've all worked in several different markets, and we've all worked across the country and lived across the country. Everywhere we go, people always say, hey, you know what, Brad? This is the hardest place in the country to forecast the weather. Everybody says that to you, and you're like, well, thank you for giving me a little bit of credit. But as we've lived, I would literally say Oklahoma, for winter weather at least, is a whole heck of a lot harder.
It is. And here's something that I've been responding to last night. Danielle, Jonathan, chime in if you've seen this. But this was brought to my attention last night by a Facebook meteorologist, and he posted, strong tornadoes will hit Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska on Tuesday, June 17th. While isolated severe storms are possible Saturday, Monday over the Dakotas and Nebraska ahead of initial positive tilted shortwave, a more substantial outbreak will ensue Tuesday. People in the areas need to monitor later forecasts for some EF4 and EF5 tornadoes given an expected Cape and magnitude of forcing. This is coming from one of those models, the GFS model, that, again, a model will tell you anything you want to hear, but people kind of jump on these. You have to be smart about it, and that's what I think makes the where we are now with social media and forecasting and having all this ability to grab these models, is that people just they see something 10 days out and they start bragging about it and saying, oh, this is going to happen. You're like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jonathan, if you saw that, but man, that can be hard. That might be another show down the road that we address, are some of these crazy whacked out forecasts that come out because people have access to this data.
Well,
it's a dilemma. It's a problem. Prior to working here, I worked in Indiana, and there was a guy who had no formal training in meteorology, started a Facebook site and a website, right? And he has like 50,000 viewers, and every time there's a chance of snow 10 days out or a tornado outbreak, he would say that. And then everyone would come to our website or Facebook site and say, hey, this guy's saying that. And I would just tell all the other meteorologists, just ignore that guy. Just ignore what he's doing, because they're going to keep on doing what they're doing. We just need to hold the course. We're the weather authority. And this guy didn't even live in Indiana. He was forecasting from Montana.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of that going on. I mean, there is even a website that I was watching a national news outlet one day, and this is a known website, a known guy who lives in his basement, probably his parents' basement, has a little website, hundreds of thousands of views, and he makes his website look like it's an authority and that it's real and that it's valid. And this person is forecasting earthquakes, is making his own warnings and alerts. And national news agencies will pick this up and post it on there if you make it look convincing enough.
Yeah.
It's a real concern.
Yeah. No, I can't tell you. And we run across that a lot, because I can't tell you how many weather events that are probably going to be minor turned into something bigger. And I think it's because with social media, you get a lot of these Facebook meteorologists that they want something to grab your attention. So everything is an outbreak now, it seems like. When it shouldn't even be an outbreak. But everything seems to be an outbreak. Everything seems to be significant damage possible. Everything seems to be substantial, tornadoes.
Well, there are a lot of credible people saying that on Facebook, on Twitter. They are people even with PhDs that are announcing, hey, mega this, big that. And eventually, if you keep looking at the models 5, 6, 7, 10 days down the road, and every time you say that, well, it's eventually going to stick. You're eventually going to get that forecast right for that EF4 out in no man's land. And then what do? You go and delete all your other stuff and brag about that when you got right? I don't know. I think anybody that's doing that is clearly doing it for attention, because most of the time it doesn't stick.
One thing I noticed earlier this past week that is now surfacing now that we're in hurricane season is that people are posting GFS model 10 days out of something developing in the Gulf of Mexico. And now a lot of these coastal markets, we live inland, so obviously we don't devote as much of our time forecasting the tropics, the Caribbean Sea, like, say, a Miami, Florida, or Houston, Texas market might. But now the problems that they're dealing with is that they're getting these Facebook forecasts going out, and Danielle's back, and now they're having to try to answer that, and spend a lot of time of their forecast and their time saying there's been a lot of rumors that something tropical is going to hit 10 days out, but then all of a sudden the very next model run and it's gone.
I'm back.
So yeah, we're glad you're back, Danielle. We were wondering where you went.
The connection here just keeps kicking me off. Sorry.
Station Wi-Fi. You must be on the station Wi-Fi. Yeah, there's about probably 20 other people trying to log on to the same Wi-Fi that you're on. Danielle, what we're talking about right now, actually, just to kind of bring you back up to speed, Facebook meteorologists and the. Say that? What?
Speaking Spanish again.
But yeah, so we were we were talking about, like now that we're in hurricane season, a lot of these Facebook hosts that will take the GFS model 10 days out and put up, hey, something tropical is going to hit Miami in 10 days, and it starts creating panic. I don't know how much of that you've seen.
And a lot of people at TV stations have to deal with that. I mean, you have other people trying to get the attention, and so many times all weather people are lumped into the same forecast.
Yeah.
And you even have the Weather Service dealing with that. They'll be like, look, we didn't call for that. What are you talking about? Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
so.
Rick Smith, who was on our show not too long ago, and was sent out a tweet. And if you're not following Rick Smith and the National Weather Service in Norman, they've got to be probably the most popular government weather social media follow. I mean, they've got, and Norman is doing some great things down there. But even Rick said, we never forecasted an outbreak on some severe weather outbreak that was supposed to happen back in April, but yeah, all of us meteorologists get lumped into the same forecast, so it happens.
And they're all at the Warning Coordinating Meteorologist Seminar in D.C. right now. Is it?
I think so.
It's that big conference going on.
Okay.
And I think Rick is speaking on social media, and he's the social media guru. And I think he's kind of also overwhelmed, showing his account. He's like, we can't do this. We can't. Yeah, you can. You got fingers, right?
Yeah.
You guys can hear me, right?
No, yeah, you sound fine. You sound fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Gosh. I'm sorry. There's just been so many things I've been trying to say, and I don't think anybody can hear me because I keep losing service. Sorry.
Go ahead, Danielle.
No, I was just going to respond to the MCS conversation from a while ago when we were talking about all the damaging wind threats and stuff like that in the Colorados. I wrote a blog, by the way, on MCSs on KOCO.com if you want to check it out, as well as on the Colorado versus Oklahoma tornado count, because, Brad, you might have already know, since you're familiar with Colorado weather pretty well, that, 15 tornadoes apparently compared to the 7 preliminary, at least, that we've had in Oklahoma this year. And I was talking to one of the ladies at the office in Denver, and she was saying that, they've only had like 1 EF4 in their history, which I thought was pretty interesting. And, so low tornado count, we average more than double they do for the year, and they're seeing more than we are, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think some years Colorado is 40, 50, 60 tornadoes. There's a lot more on the Front Range of Colorado than a lot of people think.
There's a lot that just spin up, but I think the most notable Colorado tornado was that one that happened.
The Windsor tornado in 2008, 2007. Windsor, Colorado. Almost said Oklahoma. Whenever you associate a tornado, I just want to throw Oklahoma. But this storm went northwest.
It was weird, yeah.
Yeah, it traveled northwest. It was anticyclonic, and it was EF3.
And for people that aren't familiar where Windsor is, I mean, that's like northeast of Boulder, is it not?
Yeah. It was. And I want to say that that's the strongest tornado on record for Colorado. I don't think there's ever been an EF4. I think EF3, and recently Colorado went 30 or 40 years, 40 or 50 years even, without a tornado death, a tornado fatality. And then in 2007, the first one occurred right on the Colorado-Kansas border in Hawley, Colorado. There was one fatality there.
Yeah, the Colorado can definitely get some tornadoes. Although a lot of them, I believe they're in the EF0, EF1 range. Right?
Yeah, a lot of the tornadoes that go down in that 40 or 50 category are the landspout tornadoes. Most of them, I would say, more than half of the tornadoes there are landspout tornadoes.
Yeah, that's and I mean, and up there, I mean, people forget that there's, especially those that.
But great chasing in Colorado. I mean, the visibility is so good. You don't have near as much haze in the air. The elevation is up a little bit, and so the visibility is great for photography. A lot of people get some great pictures out of Colorado.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, we got a couple minutes left. What's coming in the days ahead? We've got tonight. I looked last night at some of the longer range models, it looks like if you can slowly see high pressure is starting to creep back into Oklahoma as we go into late next week. Hoping this isn't that ridge that's beginning to build, but I think this weather pattern is slowly showing signs of starting to kind of hit the brakes a little bit. It's been nice though to get this rain. I mean, I've loved it.
Didn't slow down last year. I mean, I think July was our wettest month last year.
No, May, man. May. Well,
okay, you know, I'm forgetting the El Reno. Yeah, there's that random 8 inches there on May 31st. But
a lot of people, you know, it kind of got pushed. The story got pushed on May 20th, but Oklahoma City got like 3 or 4 inches of rain on May 20th, but that wasn't the story of the day. It was the EFI that went through more. But yeah, no, May was incredibly wet last year, and then we started getting dry. I mean, it's almost like the spigot just turned off right in June, but we still had some storms. I mean,
July still had almost 10 inches of rain. Yeah, July, and then August was up there too, and then I think. I want to say, you know, September through December was dry because we were still, you know, pushing for the wettest year ever.
I have the numbers here.
Okay.
Yeah, what are they, Jonathan?
March in 2013 for OKC, March only had 1 inch. April had 7.5, almost 15 in May.
Wow.
5 in June, 10 July, 3.5 in August. September was dry, only 2 inches, and then October 3.5, and then November was less than 1 inch. And so,
what day? Break down July. I must be having just old man brain right now. What happened in July? Where did all that rain come from?
Thunderstorms. It just kept storming.
What day? Was there like one day in particular that it just poured, or was it? Why am I forgetting July last year?
Yeah, just give me a second. I'll try to.
You had PTSD, Damon.
I mean, you know what? After May, man, June and July,
nothing mattered anymore. It's like, well, I'll eventually recover.
We're trying to fix things up around here. What happened in July? What happens when you're out here for so long? You just all of a sudden all these weather systems just run together.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty stormy. I mean, we had a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of nighttime storms too. I remember doing a lot with flooding on the morning show in July.
It must have been. Jonathan, did you find it?
Nah, hold on.
I'm trying to figure out what happened.
It's like, yeah, hold on.
Well, I can tell you right now, though, last week I mowed my yard. I have never, and I mowed it the week before. I mowed every week, but I have never had so many clippings. Like, I usually can do my yard in about 2 bags. I bag it. I had 6 bags. Sam Busney, Moose, told me that I should have turned it into hay.
I was thinking about you the other day. I remember it was Saturday after the Moore tornado, so it would be the 25th, okay, May 25th, 2013. I was coming down to your house, and you were mowing your yard, and as you were mowing, you were like mowing up insulation, bagging insulation, and I was just thinking, man, it was so wet then and so lush, just remembering the smells of driving through Moore, and how weird it must have been for you cutting your grass when a block away there are no houses left. I mean, you still have to cut your grass, but it's like, oh, we care so much about the little wiping down of the countertop.
Yeah.
I remember even when I got home May 20th, and my wife got upset with me for not doing the dishes. You know, there was some dishes in the sink. She's like, why didn't you do the dishes? And I just remember looking at her and being like, are you serious right now? There's F5 tornado, the neighborhoods are leveled, and you're upset because. But see, that's just the thing. You had to mow your grass.
Yeah.
I doing the dishes, honey.
And to me, like, yard work and mowing is very therapeutic for me. Like, just me, walking back and forth. And I love yard work. I mean, you can ask anyone in my neighborhood. I mean, I'm out there, pulling out grass. I might have one little blade of grass that's found its way through the mulch bed, and I'm finding the root of it and try to get it out. But it's very therapeutic. I remember after when we were hanging up Christmas lights, and I was still finding more debris that was like up in our roof, and then down in the gutter. So, I'm pretty sure if I were to lift up some of these bushes, I'd probably find at least a little bit more. I mean, we got some pretty thick bushes that need a little bit of trimming.
They're insulated.
Yeah. Anything else, y'all? Jonathan, you want to plug anything? Brad, you want to plug anything? Anything you want to say?
That's something to plug.
Speaking of July of last year, most days were dry, but we had a couple huge rain events. It was the 14th, 15th, 16th, 2 inches, inch and a half, 1 inch. And then we went like a week without rain, and there's a 3/4 of an inch on the 23rd, and then the 26th, you had 3.5 inches in one day. I think that set a record.
Okay, now I remember that yeah, I do remember that now. I remember I was
mentioned the numbers, and then I got numbers. I got it now.
Well, think about it, my mom comes out here once a year, and we were playing golf, and I remember we had to scurry off the course a couple times.
Man, wouldn't 10 inches of rain be awesome?
Oh my gosh,
we need it.
I would love it. Wait, Danielle, she was having connection issues, so I believe she had to bail. But she did a story the other day that said for Southwest Oklahoma to get out of the drought, and looking at all of the indices that we have, I want to say it was 15 inches. I think
12 to 15 was the number, yeah.
12 to 15, and that's 12 to 15. Now June for Oklahoma City. I think what did it say? 3 to 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 3 to 6. So. Yeah. I mean, we can get out of drought pretty quickly, if we stay in a pattern. But I don't see that pattern lasting that much longer. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Maybe come July, something new will come in here like last July. So, anything else y'all want to say? It's almost been on this for a while.
Good, man. I guess we'd have to watch that mess tonight.
Yeah.
I'll set my alarm and get up, and we'll tag team it in the overnight, I suppose. So it's almost bedtime for me.
That's a tough thing about it. If you don't work the morning show, then you probably don't know this, but your sleep cycle can be pretty tough this time of year. Trying to go to bed when the sun is still shining, and then waking up at midnight when some people, like myself, are just going to bed. So,
one word of advice I would say for any student watching this, because these live on YouTube forever, don't take Ambien and tweet. It's not a good idea.
Take Ambien and tweet.
And then get on Twitter. Tweet.
That's good advice. That is good.
Seriously, there's so many times, not so many times, I don't want to say that, but there are times I've written messages on Facebook and Twitter, and my phone's blowing up, and I don't remember doing it the next morning.
You know what?
It's like, what did I say? What did I do? Hopefully it was okay.
Don't take Ambien and a laxative. There's your advice.